I stand here today
on an island in the middle of the mighty Mississippi,
clear-eyed about the fight ahead.
to declare
these words.
that
I am a candidate for president.
I'm running for president of the United States of America.
President of the United States.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi everyone, and welcome to another Woke Wednesday. This podcast was created to shed light on different societal issues which have been at the forefront of public discourse through one of the most divisive times in American history. More so, it was created with the intent of allowing those who have often been neglected, shunned, or misunderstood to have a chance to share their experiences and thoughts. I hope that this dialogue encourages critical conversation and activism amongst our listeners, and I hope you'll tell all your friends about it and share it on your social platforms. For the next few weeks, we're going to begin a series that focuses specifically on the 2020 presidential candidates. Each episode will detail the candidate's personal and political life, all with the hope of helping to inform our listeners and beyond on each of the candidates. By promoting insight into each of these people, our hope is that each voter is able to make educated, well-informed decisions on who they'll cast their ballot for in the next presidential election. I also want to encourage you to seek out other outlets like mine to have a wider grasp on who these individuals are and what they bring to the table for you and your loved ones, because we all know that everyone has implicit biases, including myself. Each episode will, of course, highlight our own personal thoughts concerning the candidates, what the country needs moving forward, and how this person could potentially impact our society holistically. Lastly, I want to point out that we've chosen to highlight each candidate in alphabetical order, instead of choosing who may or may not be a favorite of our own, in order to remain conscious of how our own implicit bias can affect how the episodes are previewed. With that, on this episode, we're going to focus on Democratic candidate Pete Buttigieg.
My name is Pete Buttigieg. They call me Mayor Pete. I am a proud son of South Bend, Indiana, and I am running for President of the United States.
Buttigieg currently serves as South Bend, Indiana's mayor for the past 7 years. Before becoming mayor of his hometown, Mayor Pete, as he is affectionately called, attended Harvard, received a master's degree from Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, and worked as a consultant at McKinsey & Company for 3 years, while also being an intelligence officer in the Naval Reserve, and eventually serving a 7-month tour of duty in Afghanistan in 2014. With his strong academic background and experience as an intelligence officer, it's not surprising that he can speak 8 languages: English, Spanish, Italian, Maltese, Arabic, Farsi, French, and Norwegian. Funny story, y'all. I took Arabic for a day at UGA. I literally walked into the class. Maybe I shouldn't really be telling y'all this because I know my mom is watching or listening. But anyways, I'm going to say anyways. I was kind of hungover. And yeah, I went in there so excited. And I had no idea what that man was saying to me. I literally dropped the class as I was walking out. I told the professor, listen, I really enjoyed this, but this is not for me because it's hard as shit, y'all. So the fact that he speaks Arabic, and anyone else who can speak, honestly, a second or third or fourth language, kudos to them because it's hard. and Arabic is no joke. Anyways, as of today, Mayor Pete is the youngest candidate running for president at only 37 years old. And if he becomes the Democratic Party presidential nominee, he would be the first LGBTQ person to do so. During his 7 years running, South Bend, which is the fourth largest city in Indiana and the home of Notre Dame, Mayor Pete's main goal was to turn around a city that had been on the decline since the 1960s by fixing the infrastructure of downtown South Bend and bringing business back to South Bend with the help of Notre Dame. One of his goals, improving South Bend's housing stock, took the form of either tearing down or fixing up 1,000 abandoned homes within 1,000 days, mostly in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. While no one was evicted as part of this policy, there were heavy code enforcement related fines in vacant homes that people owned with the intention of fixing up and reselling. And questions were raised about Mayor Pete's ability to actually help solve the problems of his Black and Hispanic constituents, which we'll talk about a little later in this episode. During his time as mayor, the median household income of South Bend increased by nearly $10,000 to $42,000. The poverty rate decreased from 32% to 20%, and the percentage of city residents with a bachelor's degree or higher rose by 3%, all while the population was increasing. While it should be noted that the median income and poverty rate are lower than that of Indiana as a whole, it's not fair to compare a formal industrial city trying to make a transition with more economically diverse cities in Indiana or the nation overall. When compared with similar sized recovering cities in the Rust Belt in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, South Bend is well above average. Personally, I think destroying vacant homes and abandoned structures in majority neighborhoods of color can have major deficits, especially if those homes or structures are flipped by higher earning people or big businesses. And that's something you can learn about more in our gentrification episode. While his track record in South Bend was mostly positive, there were some glaring weaknesses with issues relating to Black and Hispanic residents. Early in his time as mayor, he fired a popular Black police chief, which was South Bend's first ever, who was under investigation by the FBI for wiretapping white officers who had allegations of using racist language. Additionally, South Bend still has a racial wealth gap where Black households earn about half of what white households earn, and the Black poverty rate is about twice the national average. In his 1,000 Homes in 1,000 Days had unintended consequences as well. The vacant houses were knocked down, but now they are just empty lots collecting trash that people have dumped there, and there have been concerns about potential lead and asbestos dust clouds arising from the house teardowns. There's a little sense of environmental racism, just saying. In the northwest side of the town, more than 25% of children exhibited elevated levels of lead in their blood over the last decade due to the lead paint that was used on 80% majority of South Bend's houses that were built prior to 1980. Mayor Pete's economic initiatives have helped downtown at the cost of $90 million in private investments. But some constituents feel that this should have been spent fixing up the poorer neighborhoods. And I can't disagree. And gun violence, like many other parts of our country, still remains a major problem. While all of these are a major concern, Mayor Pete did try and fix these problems by creating the Office of Engagement and Economic Empowerment, issued executive orders on diversity and inclusion, and listened to community leaders to try and resolve their problems. In response to criticism of these issues, Buttigieg admitted that there were problems, but also that no policy is perfect, and that they learned some things the hard way. As far as his policy stances go, Buttigieg strongly, and I mean strongly, supports the Green New Deal. Nope. the Green New Deal, and rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement. He's been extremely vocal about climate change being a national security threat to current and future generations, which it is. He supports every U.S. house becoming a net zero consumer of energy and favors the government subsidizing solar panels. He was one of the 407 U.S. mayors who signed an agreement to adhere to the Paris Climate Agreement even after Trump pulled out of it in 2017. Yeah, he's so stupid, just dumb. There's absolutely no reason why every other presidential candidate shouldn't be co-signing with Buttigieg's stance on climate change, because it's an ever-growing problem that will literally affect all of us. Our government officials should be prioritizing this issue more than some currently are, because if they don't, we're gonna die. Mayor Pete advocates for labor and union groups and wants Democrats to prioritize helping working class people have economic mobility. Like most of the Democratic candidates, he believes in universal background checks, opposes guns in school, because honestly, who the fuck thinks that's a good solution, and doesn't agree with the stand your ground laws. Because of his naval intelligence background, he strongly supports pulling troops out of Afghanistan, but not in Syria. He's also been heavily critical of Trump conducting foreign policy via Twitter, because, like I said, who the fuck wouldn't critique it, and opposes sending troops to the southern border, claiming it as a waste of their time. In terms of immigration reform, he wants a plan created that's a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants brought to the country illegally as children, which I think is a good thing, but also what about their parents who literally risked everything to bring them over here? I often feel like this gets overlooked too, because we should be creating tangible ways for people to become citizens regardless of their reasoning for coming over here, or if they came over legally or illegally. Period. People are people and only want equal opportunity that this country literally prides itself on. I'm just saying, we need to be creating these policies and these plans for everyone. Period. Everyone is deserving of it, because that's literally what our fucking Constitution and Declaration of Independence is all based on. I'm just saying. Ultimately, as far as military presence goes, he wants troops only to be employed when other modes of diplomacy fail, which is why I agree. They shouldn't be sent to the southern border. An issue he's vocalizing passing is a piece of legislation called the Federal Equality Act, an amendment that would give federal non-discrimination protection to LGBTQ people. This is so important because currently 28 states have no statewide laws protecting the LGBTQ community from discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations. And like I just said, there's literally no federal legislation on it. Wow, obviously he has had very personal experience with discrimination based on sexual orientation. I want to point out that this has continuously been an issue that gets swept under the rug. Our democratic system has to be more proactive in rectifying having no exclusionary laws on any basis, instead of constantly having to rely on individuals that have some personal ties to the issue. Just saying. Lastly, as the issue of healthcare continues to center people's focal point for who they're looking for with a reliable plan, Mayor Pete supports a single-payer healthcare system. But he would first enforce an all-payer rate setting system where private insurance companies wouldn't be eliminated. An all-payer system would mean that there's a specific set price for medical procedures that all insured people would pay, regardless of their company affiliation. Because of that, different hospitals can charge more or less for the same procedure depending on the type of insurance one has. A criticism of this system is that some believe in a system where hospitals earn a specific amount for each procedure they'll have less motivation to innovate. If the All-Payer Association refuses to pay the price of innovative new treatments, innovation may fail. And government-controlled profit margins can lead the healthcare system with less money for experiments and groundbreaking research.
A millennial mayor with a difficult last name.
Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
And a knack for languages.
Good morning. Buenos días. Morgen. Sabah al-khair ya America.
Pete Buttigieg is in the race for the White House.
I am running for president of the United States.
So, who is he? Buttigieg, also known as
Mayor Pete,
is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He got the job when he was just 29 and quickly moved to reverse the city's economic decline.
our hometown is not dead.
While serving as mayor, Buttigieg took a leave of absence for a tour of duty in Afghanistan. He came out as gay while seeking re-election, and he won. So, what are his priorities? Ideologically, he's a progressive, but he hasn't unveiled specific policies just yet. Instead, Buttigieg is focusing on big ideas.
You know, our party has this tendency to lead with the policies. First, we got to explain our values.
He wants to abolish the Electoral College, establish single-payer health care, and expand the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but it's not just about throwing more justices on the court. What I think we need to do is some kind of structural reform that makes the court less political.
He's also pushing for the religious left to make a comeback.
No one party has a monopoly on faith.
And he thinks it's time for a younger voice in politics.
My face is my message, right? A lot of this is simply the idea that we need generational change.
So what's his dynamic with President Trump? Buttigieg is no fan of the Trump administration, especially Vice President Mike Pence, an opponent of same-sex marriage and anti-discrimination laws.
And that's the thing I wish the Mike Pences of the world would understand. That if you got a problem with who I am, your problem is not with me. Your quarrel, sir, is with my creator.
And Trump has yet to say or tweet anything about Mayor Pete. So what are his chances? Buttigieg made a name for himself when this appearance on CNN went viral.
Do you think Vice President Pence would be a better or worse president than President Trump?
And it's paying off. Buttigieg raised $7 million for his 2020 bid in the first quarter, enough to qualify for the first Democratic debates in June. But the question is whether this relative newcomer to the national stage can keep up his momentum throughout the long primary season.
While I know I have shared some of my own personal thoughts about him, our producer Trey also has some opinions too. He loves that he's young and hungry to get in there and change things because they are right, not because of the title or the money or the prestige. He's currently appealing to the hard moderates. Literally, in almost every interview, he discusses balance and moderation and how not very many candidates in the race right now are catering to those who are pretty straight down the middle politically. He isn't afraid to speak out on social issues and what he knows to be right. Because honestly, there's not any gray when it comes to social issues under the law. You're either on the right side or you're on the wrong one, period. But he understands the Rust Belt and working class conservatives and moderates who have felt abandoned by the Trump administrations and by those who have never felt like they had someone to represent them in a while. Now, while this could be a good strategy, or he could falter depending on whether or not he can whip up the appeal, he seems to be doing a great job of it so far. I mean, he's literally ahead of Beto in some polls, and if you know Trey, you know he loves Beto. But he has taken off like a rocket against a lot of these system Democrats, and he seems to be doing it for the right reasons, and with a strategy that has already gotten him significant national attention. He literally continues to climb, and we'll honestly just see how far he can go. Y'all also should follow him and Chasten on Instagram because they're super cute. And their Time magazine photo cover, that was cute too. Ultimately, we'll see if Mayor Pete can or can't swing the votes. I hope that this episode was informative and thought-provoking for all that listened and for those that will listen in the future. I honestly hope that Buttigieg continues to make progressive strides in helping to shape our democratic institutions into what they should be and not what they currently are. Regardless of his youth, sexuality, or anything else that some may use against him, looking at his experience and policy reform ideas should be what we use when deciding whether or not we'd vote for him. I also hope that you get involved with your local and state elections too, because those truly do matter because of their direct impact on you and your respective communities. Remember, all of these opinions are my own, but they should be everyone else's. Have a woke Wednesday. Thank you for another Woke Wednesday. Transcripts of entire episodes will be available on the Woke Wednesday website. Episodes are written and produced by Hannah Mason and Trey Leonard of Lenico Entertainment. Episodes are hosted by Hannah Mason and edited by Trey Leonard. All graphics are designed by Anna French,